Hello. Thank you for joining us. You can always get interactive. And we're talking about you going to look out for TV3 Ghana as also you add the hashtag TV3 New Day. We're here to speak to the Minister of Education, Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum. He's also a Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe. And alongside, we want to look at, from the perspective of education, what so far needs to be done, has been done, and what we can achieve within the medium to long term. And I have to say that, sir, thank you for speaking to us. In the meantime, we would want to say that you've had a busy few weeks. I was just on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages. You were in Sierra Leone, Liberia, etc. How has it been for you?
It's been great, very exciting. I've been through the mail, so to speak, in a foreign land. I know how it is to make dreams of people come true, and so in the midst of it, when there are challenges, that is what keeps you going, because what you're doing is changing the destiny, literally, of people who may be less privileged than yourself. So I'm super excited every single day when I come here.
I particularly saw you in a model school. I think it was a kindergarten school.
Yes.
And what's the whole concept about all those new structures you're building and supervising?
Yes. 110 kg classrooms have been refurbished to bring 21st century learning to Ghana in terms of the basic level. I know the presidents have done so well with secondary education, and STEM schools have been done, but he also wants to make sure that the STEM is actually a pipeline from kindergarten all the way through junior high school to high school and then beyond. And that is why we've turned our attention to basic schools and began the KG rehabilitation and construction across the country so that the story will be a holistic one and not just one of free senior high school implementation. It's going to be a story of education transformation like we've never seen before in this great country of ours.
You have particularly decided to be focusing also, apart from just implementing free SHS, on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Why is that critical for the transformation of the country?
See, the bottom line for me is that we need critical thinkers in this country. The only subject field where you can't memorize and you have to think critically to solve problems in the classroom is in the STEM fields. And the STEM that we talk about is integrating all subjects, so to speak. So STEM is not just doing science, doing engineering, mathematics by themselves, but it's about problem solving, a holistic way of solving problems, where you are applying skills from physics to chemistry to mathematics to solve a real-life problem or challenge that your society confronts. And we know around the world that we're in the fourth industrial revolution. And certain things are so critical. There's something called the 4 C's that we should be able to help students acquire. The first one is creativity, second, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. So I always give the example of a teacher who is teaching pollution and then asking students what is pollution, how does it occur, how do you prevent it. You're actually getting them to understand the concept. But if you want to get critical thinkers out of that content, then you need to ask the students to create a city without pollution. Once you do that, they have to meet in groups, collaboration will be taking place. They have to think creatively to see if there's no pollution. What does that mean? Electric cars, solar panels. What do we do? Before you know, they are gathering ideas and researching. And before you know, you are creating children who are also effective communicators because they have to write. And after that, articulate their opinions and results of their study to people. So you build effective communicators, collaborators, creative and critical thinkers. And this is what STEM lends itself to. Whether you're talking about robotics, as we are now doing in our schools, whether you are talking about development of drones and all that. It requires critical thinking, which bring various fields, mathematics, engineering. You have physics incorporated. By the time you know, you have individuals who can then change the fortunes of our nation. So the bottom line in education is that you have to look at the access. That means provide opportunity for all. But when they go to the school, what they learn is equally important. How is it relevant to the needs of your society? So when you provide access, you have to ensure there's quality learning. And the quality learning means you have to have what we call a blueprint for learning. And that is where in education we have something called the New Bloom's taxonomy. Then we have the Web's depth of knowledge. If I stand in a classroom and a teacher is teaching, I can tell whether that teacher's instruction is going to bring about creativity and critical thinking, or if it's just going to be about rote memorization. So the quality of the teaching and learning is important, and you have a blueprint, you have a framework through the Web's depth of knowledge or through the Bloom taxonomy, where you move from understanding, comprehension, through analysis, evaluation, and now through creation. And then once you have the quality of instruction and assessment taking place, then don't forget that what they are learning should be relevant to the needs of your nation. So you have access. So if you look at free, compulsory, universal, basic education, it's an access program. A free senior high school is an access program. But within that, you have to ensure that quality is taking place. And they have to ensure that what they're doing is relevant.
There's one thing I've noticed, though. When you're communicating policy, you seem to be doing that very well, and also seems to be going down critically. But in the media space, we seem to be blurring the issues. Is it that we don't seem to understand what you're communicating or what really the intentions are? Or we're just looking out for the negatives, particularly with regards to free SHS policy?
I think for the most part, the media gets my communication right. The people get my communication right. The audience that we are talking to, they get my communication right. The only challenge that some of them allude to is the fact that I diagnose the problem and say this is what we are confronting as a nation. And some of them say, why are you talking about the problem? Why haven't you solved it? And I tell them, policy making is not about me. I have to diagnose the problem, get my professionals to take a look at it, have stakeholder consultation, take it to cabinet before it becomes a policy. But I want to create a sense of urgency for our nation. If something is not going well, I want the country to know. I don't want to hide it. So that is where some media people are quick to say, why are you complaining? I'm not complaining. I'm telling you what the problem is. What people have been hiding over the years. I want to tell you that we have a problem, but also going to go the next step and say, this is what we're going to do about it. Recently, when I made a comment about universities training students for jobs that do not exist, some media people said, why are you talking as if you are us? And I said, you don't want me to say that something is wrong? But I also said in that presentation that I have met with university vice chancellors, and we are now looking at how do we change that. That you don't offer a certain course that you know very well, that there's no job out there for those youth, and they cannot be retrained even easily to fit into the job market, so to speak, especially when you have problem with graduate unemployment. When you know that companies rather hire electrical engineers than those who did petroleum engineering, then it's incumbent upon you to make sure you are training more electrical engineers than petroleum engineers. When you know that there's no job opportunity for students who do, there's a different kind of education, and they call non-teaching Bachelor of Education. Non-teaching Bachelor of Education. When they come out, after national service at the Ministry of Education, there's no job available because there's no career for those who did B.E.C.E in education that is non-teaching. So, That is some of the things I articulate, and I say we have a problem. But I don't end there. I always say that this is what we are doing about this challenge. So when you talk about some people who have a tough time with me, they are thinking that I shouldn't be the one telling. When you have 48 high schools in this country with a pass rate of 1% or less, you don't want me to say it. But I will also tell you that we are doing something about it. With the support of MasterCard, we are doing a turnaround program for some of these schools that are facing that challenge. But for me not to say it means I want to hide it from the good people of Ghana. I want to create a sense of urgency for us to begin to see that there has been gaps in our education system. Yes, we have educations that are better than most around the world, especially in developing countries, but I also see how we can be better than even some of the developed countries. I see the opportunity clearly that given my experience, my training, and what I've done around the world, I look at that and say, given the kind of children we have in Ghana, we can outperform most countries around the world. But I want to make sure the gaps that is preventing the children from getting to that intended destination, we bridge the gap immediately. So, for example, when in this country we have not been assessing students at primary 2, at primary 4, we wait till junior high school. Junior high school means 2 years of KG, 6 years of primary, 8. 3 years of junior high school, 11. The only time we know what is going on in our school system in a holistic fashion is after 11 years of education. At the national level, you don't know. Something needed to be done about it. And under the leadership of the president, he gave me the mandate, the authority, to make sure we implement national standardized test. Part of it funded through Gallup, a World Bank project. Consequently, this year, we've assessed all primary 2 students across the country. What is so profound about it is that they were all assessed on tablets. No paper and pencil. And they were assessed throughout the country. Some private school students and some all public schools. So now we know what is happening. We know that in English, they are doing well compared to what happened in 2015. Primary 2, 2015, 2% of our students could read for understanding. And now, 38%. What is even so interesting, based on the data they've just released, is that in mathematics, our students have a 61% proficiency. Great accomplishment by all standards. We're on our way to compete with the rest of the world and win the competition. When you have 60% of your children in a developing nation in Ghana being proficient in mathematics as primary 2, the primary 4 results will be coming out soon. And it's going to give us great insights. Then you take the primary 2 assessment and then you craft an intervention plan for them in primary 3. That those who are not doing well have to get some intervention. You assess them again in primary 4 to measure the growth. That is how you change your education system. Because you are not waiting till after 11 years to do something. So by the time they get to junior high school, every child will read proficiently in this country.
The free SHS policy seems to be the most popular education policy. I've traveled to a number of countries, talking Sierra Leone, Liberia, a number of them, and Ghana is always praised for implementing it. But we do know that we even have reported about particular issues about feeding, sometimes shortages of food, etc. It seems to have gone down well, but from your perspective, what needs to be looked at? There's also the issue about funding. When should we do that? Do we need to do that at all? What's your take?
You see, both of us are seeing a challenge, but I see it with different set of eyes. And I have inside information that may not be available to you. So, for example, when we had the food shortage challenge, what I saw was a supply chain system breakdown. Because what had been the norm is that you have suppliers who supply the food to the schools. And sometimes take 3 months, even 6 months to pay them, and no problems, no questions. The moment the inflationary rate went up and they said, no more cash, we want cash. With that cash, we can't supply because our capital is diminishing. Consequently, we have serious challenges with food shortages. So from where you sit, you can look at that and say, oh, the policy is in trouble. They can't handle it. Why don't we look at another way? Because the government doesn't have the money. No, it's a cash flow problem. It's not a question of budgetary allocation. It's a question of a cash flow management system that changed overnight. Consequently, you go through that problem. Then it's incumbent upon you then to look at how do you change the supply chain management system to suit the current realities so that you can still continue with the program. So if you are sitting at where I sit, you look at it and say, oh my God, we have a major crisis with supply chain. We have a cash flow problem. Cash flow problem is different from having a cash issue. So I'm sitting here saying, no, we have what it takes to implement this program. But somebody from the outside is also saying, if you have what it takes, why is it that we have a food problem? And I'm saying it is a supply chain because now the suppliers don't want to wait 3 months. They at most will be 2 weeks. You have to pay them. And we have not planned our cash flow that way to meet the needs of the suppliers. Therefore, when we are able to plan it that way and align our cash flow to the needs of the suppliers, that problem is done away with. So, for example, I was so pleased that in December, the government released 120 million cedis for buffer stock supplies to be paid, the arrears, so that they will have the opportunity to go. And 2 weeks ago, we paid them another 290 million. Almost all the arrears from 2021, 2022 is almost cleared. It's left with something small. Consequently, suppliers are not happy because we'll be able to clear the arrears. As I speak with you, arrears to headmasters, Ministry of Finance have made the release to the controller. They are beginning releasing funds today, from today, so that I can also pay any arrears for headmasters and have money to continue to give it to them going forward. If you sit in this position of mind and you have access to this information, you don't see the crisis that a media person is talking about. It's not because you are oblivious of the challenges facing you. It's not because you don't appreciate what the person is trying to get your attention to tell you. It's not because you want to ignore the concerns that are coming up, but you have a set of facts that the other person doesn't have.
If you take a look at what you're doing, you seem to be developing a lot of model schools, a lot of schools, even bringing them up to par with some of the big schools. B.E.C.E, there's a number of schools also scattered across the country. But everybody wants their children to go to Wesley Girls, Achimota, etc. Is it difficult for you, or has it been difficult trying to get all of us to understand that the B.E.C.E of today can also be the B.E.C.E of tomorrow once we give a commitment to another one somewhere else, like B.E.C.E Girls, for example?
I think things are shifting. I'm seeing a trend now where with the promotion that we're giving to schools and with the infrastructure that we've built, I have a gentleman who has come who has a PhD in microbiology. And he happened to have visited B.E.C.E Girls. And he had his twins. He said at all costs, he wants them at B.E.C.E Girls. If you look at a person like that, you would think that he would say, at all costs, my girls should be at Wesley Girls. But it's because of the way we have actually conceptualized how you open a new school. Let me tell you something briefly about B.E.C.E Girls. That small girls' school is getting the attention of the country for them. I went to visit a school in Accra here, and primary 6 students knew about Bosomtwe girls.
Maybe because of you.
Probably.
You're always on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah. But the issue is that we've been proactive in how you operate new schools. The former headmistress of Wesley Girls, famous one, Ms. Jokoto, is the mentor to the headmistress of Bosomtwe Girls. She even goes there to train the students. So we are transmitting the DNA of Wesley Girls to Bosomtwe Girls. There's one STEM school at Abomusu. We intentionally look at how do we transfer B.E.C.E and the ethos of B.E.C.E and the values of B.E.C.E to that school. Consequently, we transferred an assistant headmaster of B.E.C.E to the school. And we are getting some other teachers to voluntarily transfer there with some incentive. So if you do affiliation, private universities have to get affiliation, right? Why? Because we want them to be mentored and guided by existing high-performing university. We're taking that concept and we are saying any new school that we are opening must have an affiliated high-performing high school. Generally, what we do is that the headmaster there at the new school is going to be mentored by the headmaster at the high-performing school. Teachers at the new school will do field trips to the existing high-performing school. We are getting resources so that they can do joint professional development. A high-performing instructor or teacher at B.E.C.E can go to Abomusu and train the teachers. If we are intentional about how we get schools to be high-performing, in no time they will be high-performing. And I'm amazed when you go to Bosomtwe Girls and you look at what they have. It's not surprising that there's a huge demand. In fact, this year, they can accommodate all the people who want to go there. New schools are not supposed to be like that. But yes, I'm concerned that everybody wants to go to Wesley Girls, and rightly so. But why can't we create more Wesley Girls around the country? We have Kumasi Wesley Girls. We want Kumasi Wesley Girls to become like Cape Coast Wesley Girls. But it doesn't just happen. You have to do cross-fertilization of ideas and practices. We also have a team that is now going around senior high schools and what they are doing, documenting best practice. So we know how to get schools to become great institutions. And I don't understand why any new school should be started with that proactive approach to making them better within a short period of time and have a situation where 40 years of these schools are even performing abysmally. We have not done a better job in terms of how we get schools to be high performing, and that's what we are doing now. So I'm grateful to MasterCard, for example, with the funding they've provided to turn around some of the schools. We also are recruiting some retired headmasters who will be sent to schools to mentor and guide the headmaster there. Most invariably, they are new. And then the one big thing that we're doing now, approved by Cabinet, is the establishment of National Education Leadership Institute, providing boot camp for new headmasters, providing opportunity for assistant headmasters to be trained to become headmasters. Because you see, in Ghana, unlike in other countries or developed countries, we don't train headmasters. Headmasters just go through apprenticeship for the most part. Some of them, through their own initiative, will go and do a master's in education leadership. But we don't have what do we call, yes, we don't have a licensure program, we don't have credentialing program, we don't have a training program for them. So if they happen to serve under a high-performing headmaster as assistant headmasters, they go on and they do well. If they don't get a high-performing headmaster, then they go and they do just what they know, and schools are not changing. But I believe all Ghanaian schools in the next few years will show that they too can become the Wesley Girls of Ghana, the B.E.C.E of Ghana. But we have to be intentional about providing them support and providing them the opportunity to really become great institutions of learning so that the pressure on Wesley Girls will go down and the pressure on B.E.C.E will go down and we'll get more B.E.C.E. You see, there are more B.E.C.E, but I only hear of Legon B.E.C.E. Our goal is that why can't we get the other precepts to become like Legum precept. After all, they are all part of the schools that are founded by the Presbyterian Church.
You know Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. You go through his literature and he's always complaining about, well, not enough desks in many schools across the country at the basic level, etc. How are we making sure that while we're looking at the high end, the secondary level, we're also bringing to par the provision of infrastructure at basic schools, etc., so that education and its development becomes holistic?
I think in situations like this, you have to take a two-pronged approach. One approach is ending the systemic problem that you have. Other approach is solving the problems that you currently confront. If you leave one out, you are not going to be able to end the crisis. Sometimes you be caught up in a situation where you just look at the current crisis and what you can do, and you keep on doing it. But it will never end if you don't look at the root cause of the challenge that you are having. So first is that current challenges we are confronting. We need furniture. We need to provide furniture. When we heard of the Pandai story, we had furniture going there. But we also have to look at how do we address the medium-term challenges that the schools are confronting. We are reaching out to the Forestry Commission to look at how our schools will be provided wood. We have technical schools that are doing a very good job and can do furniture. So we are meeting to look at that opportunity so that we can get more furniture out there at a lower cost compared to if we were to procure and procure and procure. But as I speak with you, there's a procurement activity taking place through the Ghana Education Service. 150,000 pieces of furniture is also being procured. So that will also make a dent in terms of some of the districts that have serious challenges with furniture. But we also have to begin to look at the very long term. How do you solve the systemic problem? It's when you begin to take a serious look at education planning. When I hear of schools under trees, my heart really aches because I feel like, why should any child sit under a tree to study? Then I ask myself, how did those schools become? Who approved the schools? What process did we go through to send a headmaster to a school without a building? It boils down to the fact that there was a lot of disconnect between the district level, district director running schools there, and the regional director and the Director General of Ghana Education Service. At that point, one hand didn't know what the other was doing. Consequently, you may have a district director going to approve a school without recourse to the regional director saying, yeah, there should be a school here. Or the Director General giving some kind of approval to say, okay, if that community needs a school, then we need to liaise with Get Fund to make sure we can put a classroom block there. It may take us 1 year or two, but we can convince the community that a block will come to you soon. And when that block comes, your school begins. But if the district director approves that school in a shed, one day rainstorm hits, that shed is gone, the school is under a tree. So when you talk about schools under trees and you want to really solve it, yes, confront the current challenges, find a way to provide some pavilion classrooms, but understand that if you don't have educational infrastructure planning unit at your ministry, you ought to create one. And that's what we're doing now. So there are communities where public schools are lacking. And if you don't take the stand to say that I have education planning unit that is in charge of planning education infrastructure, so that you won't have a situation that you have in Kaswa, for example, where there's a paucity of public schools, where a number of parents have to depend on private schools. You really have to begin to look at long term. This is how I solve the problem. Short term, this is what I'm doing. Medium term, this is what I'm going to do. Once you can do all these three, then you can forever arrest the challenge that confronts you in any sphere of education, and more especially regarding infrastructure.
And before we wrap up, you've been inundated with a lot of Manasseh Azura. We did an investigation about placement, etc. But we also do know that holistically, you look at a sector that is developing so well, even though with some teething problems that you're tackling. For you personally, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how would you want your legacy to be? Let's say one day you're not serving as Minister of Education, but serving in a higher public office, for example.
I think I've gotten an opportunity of a lifetime handed to me by the President of the Republic to lead a charge in education transformation. We are sowing seeds that will germinate and will be nurtured in the coming weeks, months, and years. When I'm no longer sitting in this seat, I want to be remembered that I did not take the opportunity handed to me by the President lightly. That every day when I woke up, I saw an opportunity to go about transforming our nation's future. I believe that the future of our nation is better than our past. And the better days of this country is ahead of us and not behind us. But how we execute our education agenda would really answer the question of a better future and not a future that is a basket case. I believe that when I'm no longer here, the foundation that we have laid for STEM, nobody can change it. And you change it at your own peril. Whether you're coming from my government as the next Minister for Education or wherever you are coming from, you tell Ghanaians that schools like Bosonchwe girls should not be supported. And that schools that are fast becoming like Wesley girls is no longer needed. You tell Ghanaians that gender parity in secondary education was a bad thing. I think Ghanaians know better and they are wiser. And they are going to look at what we have done and be able to say, you better continue. So I believe our legacy and the legacy of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was that he was an education transformer and that every foundation that he laid should be built upon. And that is why I'm excited that we are on the right course. Any country that has transformed its fortunes in the 21st century did it because they improved education. And in Ghana, we are fast changing the narrative that children should just memorize facts, should be a thing of the past. I just want to say one thing. One thing that I'm seriously and excited about is the fact that we have put an end to the perennial examination leakages that confronted B.E.C.E. exams in this country. When the President charged me to find a way to end it, I went to work. We brought about best practices from around the world called serialization. 2 years ago, on the B.E.C.E., different regions had different questions, even though it's the same level of difficulty. People who used to sell the questions online saw that their market was gone. They pulled down their website. Because some people who bought it were in Accra, but they bought the questions for Ashanti region. Therefore, it didn't show up. Just this past year, every examination center had different set of questions. In the coming examination, within the same examination room, students are going to have different questions. It will be a game changer. When that happens, we have stopped leakages, we have stopped examination malpractices within the room. A week ago, I was in Sierra Leone. All the West African education ministers met. I shared with them the story of Ghana, putting an end to examination leakages, and they were super excited. So we have resolved together that we are going to meet with WAEC to also serialize WASI, to make sure that there will be no leakages on WASI. We remove the incentive for leakages. So if you want to sell and make money, nobody will buy. There will be no market for leak questions. Remember 3 years ago, a certain school whose name I won't mention, students went on demonstration when the leak question didn't show up. Students are beginning to think there's a right to have questions leaked. This will be a thing of the past. And my brother, when I'm no longer here, and this perennial problem has been resolved, it's something that I can look back to, and it will make me happy, everything. It is this and many other things that we're doing. That's the reason why when I hear all the negative reportage and people trying to smear my reputation, it doesn't bother me because I think and believe that we can create a better Ghana for all.
Well, thank you for speaking to us, Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum. It's been a pleasure. Now, Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum is the Minister for Education, but also the Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe. We've been having some area of interactions on secondary school education or free senior high school policy implementation, how we need to improve on professional teacher education and training, and then also beefing up basic school education. Looks exciting so far. Make sure you get interactive. We're talking about TV3 Ghana as you go to look for us on social media. We're talking about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you always add the hashtag TV3 New Day. Now it's back to the studio.